This story comes from a viewer named Mark, a seasoned surfer who spent his summers chasing waves along the remote coastlines of Northern California. Mark lived for the ocean, its power, its unpredictable beauty. He'd faced rogue waves, strong currents, and even the occasional shark sighting, but nothing prepared him for the terror he found buried beneath the seemingly idyllic sands of a secluded cove. It was late August, and the summer crowds had thinned. Mark had heard whispers among the local surf community about a hidden gem, a pristine cove accessible only by a treacherous, unmarked trail. The waves there, they said, were legendary perfect barrels, uncrowded, a surfer's paradise. Intrigued, and always seeking the next challenge, Mark decided to find it. After a grueling hike through dense coastal scrub, he found it. The cove was breathtaking. Towering cliffs embraced a crescent of golden sand, and the waves rolled in with a hypnotic rhythm. It was utterly deserted, a slice of untouched paradise. Mark spent the entire day there, riding wave after perfect wave, feeling a profound sense of peace and exhilaration. As dusk approached, a thick, unseasonable fog began to roll in from the ocean, quickly engulfing the cove in a milky shroud. Mark, reluctant to leave, decided to camp on the beach for the night. He had a small tent, a sleeping bag, and enough supplies for a few days. He built a small bonfire, the flames a defiant beacon against the encroaching mist. He fell asleep to the rhythmic crash of the waves and the mournful cry of distant foghorns. He awoke sometime in the dead of night, not to a sound, but to a sensation. He felt as if he was sinking. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but the feeling persisted. He opened his eyes. The fog was still thick, obscuring everything beyond a few feet. He tried to sit up, but found himself struggling. It felt as if the sand beneath his sleeping bag was giving way, slowly, inexorably pulling him down. Panic began to set in. He scrambled out of his sleeping bag, his hands sinking into the wet, granular sand. He tried to stand, but his feet immediately sank deeper. It was like quicksand, but slower, more insidious. The sand was cold, clinging, and it seemed to be alive, shifting and pulling at him. He looked around frantically, trying to find something to grab onto. The cliffs were too far, lost in the fog. His surfboard, usually his lifeline, was propped against a rock, now a distant, blurry shape. He tried to crawl, digging his fingers into the sand, but it offered no purchase. Every movement seemed to pull him deeper. He could feel the cold, wet sand seeping into his clothes, pressing against his skin. He was sinking, slowly, terrifyingly. He started to shout, his voice swallowed by the thick fog and the roar of the waves. No one would hear him. He was completely alone. As he continued to sink, he noticed something else. The sand wasn't just pulling him down. It was moving around him, almost like a viscous liquid. He could feel subtle currents, eddies, and swirls beneath the surface. And then he saw them faint, dark shapes moving just beneath the surface of the sand, like shadows in murky water. They were long and sinuous, like thick ropes or tentacles, weaving and coiling around his legs. He tried to kick, to pull his legs free, but they were already too deep, entangled in the unseen things beneath the sand. He felt a strange, sucking sensation, as if something was drawing him down, not just the sand itself. A primal fear seized him. He wasn't just sinking. He was being pulled. By what, he couldn't say. But he knew, with a terrifying certainty, that he was not alone in that cove. He thrashed wildly, screaming now, his voice hoarse. He felt a sharp, stinging pain on his ankle, then another on his calf. It felt like 1,000 tiny needles piercing his skin. He looked down, but the fog and the darkness obscured everything. He could only feel the relentless pull, the agonizing sting. He felt something brush against his face, something cold and slimy. He recoiled, spitting sand from his mouth. He was almost waist deep now, the cold, wet sand pressing against his chest, making it hard to breathe. He closed his eyes, tears mixing with the sand on his face. He thought of his family, his friends, the life he was about to lose. He had faced death before, but never like this, slowly, helplessly, consumed by the very ground beneath him. Just as he felt the sand reach his chin, a sudden, powerful wave crashed onto the beach, a rogue wave that seemed to come from nowhere. It washed over him, pulling him sideways, dislodging him from the grip of the shifting sands. He was tumbled and dragged, salt water filling his mouth and nose, but he was free. He fought his way to the surface, gasping for air, and found himself closer to the cliffs. He scrambled onto a rocky outcrop, coughing and sputtering, his body trembling uncontrollably. He looked back at the spot where he had been sinking, but the fog had swallowed it whole. The sand looked normal, undisturbed. He didn't wait for the sun to rise. He found his surfboard, grabbed his tent, and stumbled back along the treacherous trail, not stopping until he reached his car. He drove away from that cove, never looking back. Mark never told anyone the full story, not even his closest friends. He knew how unbelievable it sounded. He sold his surfboard, gave up surfing, and moved inland, far away from the ocean. He says he can still feel the sand clinging to his skin, and he sometimes wakes up in the middle of the night, convinced he's sinking. He doesn't know what was in that cove, what moved beneath the sands. But he knows it was real, and he knows that some paradises are best left undisturbed. Our second story comes from a young woman named Chloe, who spent her summers working at a quaint little gift shop on a popular tourist beach in Florida. Chloe loved the beach, the warm sun, the gentle breeze, the endless expanse of the ocean. It was her happy place, a sanctuary from the stresses of everyday life, until a seemingly innocent discovery turned her paradise into a living nightmare. It was a slow Tuesday afternoon in late July. The beach was sparsely populated, most tourists having retreated to their air-conditioned hotels to escape the midday heat. Chloe was taking a break, strolling along the waterline, collecting seashells, when she spotted something unusual bobbing in the gentle surf. It was a glass bottle, old and encrusted with barnacles, with a piece of paper visible inside. Intrigued, Chloe waded into the water and retrieved the bottle. It was a thick, dark green glass, clearly very old. She carefully uncorked it, the cork crumbling in her fingers, and extracted the rolled-up piece of paper. It was a single sheet, yellowed with age, and the ink was faded, but legible. It was a message written in a shaky, almost childlike hand. It read, "Help me. They're here. They come from the deep. They want to take us all. Don't go in the water after dark. Don't listen to the singing. They're waiting. Please, find us. Room 13, the Coral Reef Inn. Don't tell anyone. They're watching." The message was undated, unsigned. Chloe felt a chill despite the warm sun. It sounded like something out of a horror movie, a desperate plea from someone in grave danger. Her first instinct was to dismiss it as a prank, a morbid joke left by a bored tourist. But something about the message, the raw terror in the handwriting, the specific details, made her hesitate. Room 13, the Coral Reef Inn. The Coral Reef Inn was an old, dilapidated motel a few miles down the coast, known for its cheap rates and questionable clientele. It had been abandoned for years, a decaying monument to a bygone era of tourism. Chloe decided to do some research. When she got home, she searched online for Coral Reef Inn Room 13. To her surprise, she found a few old news articles. In 1987, a family of 4, the Millers, had disappeared from room 13 of the Coral Reef Inn. Their car was still in the parking lot, their belongings still in the room. They had simply vanished without a trace. The case had gone cold, a local urban legend. Chloe's blood ran cold. The message in the bottle was from 1987. It was a message from the Millers. She tried to tell her friends, her family, but they all reacted the same way: skepticism, amusement, concern for her mental well-being. "It's just a prank, Chloe," they said. "Someone's messing with you." But Chloe knew. She couldn't shake the feeling that the message was real, a desperate cry from the past. And the warning, "Don't go in the water after dark, don't listen to the singing," began to haunt her. She started noticing things. The ocean, once a source of comfort, now seemed menacing. She would catch glimpses of movement in the deeper water, shadows that seemed to shift and coalesce just beyond her sight. And at night, when the beach was deserted, she thought she heard it, a faint, ethereal singing carried on the wind, a haunting melody that seemed to beckon her towards the dark waves. One night, unable to sleep, Chloe decided to go to the coral reef inn. She knew it was foolish, but she felt an irresistible pull, a need to understand. The old motel was even more dilapidated than she remembered, its windows boarded up, its paint peeling, a ghostly silhouette against the moonlit sky. She found room 13. The door was ajar, hanging precariously on a single hinge. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was filled with dust and cobwebs, the furniture covered in white sheets like shrouded ghosts. The air was heavy, stagnant, and carried a faint, metallic scent. As she stood there, she heard it again, the singing. It was louder now, coming from somewhere deep within the motel, a chorus of voices, mournful and beautiful, yet utterly terrifying. It seemed to be calling her name. "Chloe," they sang. "Come to us. Join us." She felt a strange sense of calm wash over her, a desire to follow the voices, to join the chorus. She took a step forward, then another, drawn deeper into the decaying motel. Just as she reached the end of the hallway, a sudden, piercing scream echoed through the motel, a sound of pure, unadulterated terror. It broke the spell. Chloe recoiled, her heart pounding, the calm replaced by a surge of primal fear. She turned and ran, not stopping until she was out of the motel, breathing in the fresh night air. She didn't look back. She drove home, her mind reeling, the singing still echoing in her ears. The next day, Chloe went to the police. She showed them the message in the bottle, told them about the news articles, about the singing, about her experience at the motel. They listened patiently, but their expressions were skeptical. They told her they would look into it, but she knew they didn't believe her. Chloe never went back to that beach. She quit her job, moved to a different state, and tried to forget. But she says she can still hear the singing sometimes, carried on the wind, a haunting reminder of the message in the bottle and the unseen things that lurk beneath the waves. She doesn't know what happened to the Millers or what those voices were. But she knows one thing for sure: some messages are best left unread, and some songs are best left unheard. Our final story comes from a retired fisherman named Thomas, who spent his golden years living in a small cottage overlooking a rugged, isolated stretch of coastline in Oregon. Thomas was a man of the sea, intimately familiar with its moods and its mysteries. He spent his days beachcombing, searching for treasures washed ashore by the relentless tides. But one stormy morning, he found something that was no treasure at all. It was late October, and a fierce storm had raged for days, churning the ocean into a furious maelstrom. When the storm finally broke, Thomas, eager to see what the angry sea had relinquished, ventured out onto the beach. The sand was littered with debris, driftwood, tangled seaweed, and the occasional piece of flotsam from distant ships. As he walked, his eyes scanning the shoreline, he saw it, a large, dark mass partially buried in the wet sand, just beyond the high tide line. It was too big to be driftwood, too dark to be a rock. Intrigued, Thomas approached it cautiously. As he got closer, he realized what it was. It was a large, wooden chest, old and heavily encrusted with barnacles and seaweed. It looked like something out of a pirate movie, a relic from a bygone era. Thomas's heart quickened. Could it be a treasure chest? He tried to dig it out, but it was heavy, firmly wedged in the sand. He returned to his cottage, grabbed a shovel and a crowbar, and spent the next few hours digging. Finally, with a grunt of effort, he managed to pry the chest free. The chest was made of dark, heavy wood, bound with rusted iron straps. The lid was secured with a large, corroded padlock. Thomas, his hands trembling with anticipation, used the crowbar to break the lock. With a groan of protest, the lid creaked open. Inside, there was no gold, No jewels, no ancient artifacts. Instead, the chest was filled with what looked like old, leather-bound journals. There were dozens of them, stacked neatly, each one filled with faded, handwritten script. Thomas, a keen reader, was disappointed but still curious. He picked up the top journal. The cover was blank, but the first page had a date, October 17, 1888. The writing was small, precise, and in English. It was a ship's log. He spent the rest of the day and much of the night reading. The journals belonged to a man named Captain Elias Thorne, the captain of a whaling ship called the Leviathan. The log detailed their voyage, their hunts, the daily routines of life at sea. It was fascinating, a glimpse into a harsh, forgotten world. But as Thomas continued to read, the entries began to change. The tone became darker, more desperate. Captain Thorne began to write about strange occurrences, unsettling sounds coming from the depths, strange lights in the water, and the growing unease among his crew. Then came the entry that made Thomas's blood run cold. October 25, 1888. The singing has begun. A haunting melody carried on the wind. It calls to us from beneath the waves. Some of the men have gone mad. They stare at the ocean, their eyes vacant, and they whisper of a place beneath the sea, a city of light and song. I fear we are lost. The next entries were even more disturbing. Captain Thorne wrote of men disappearing from the ship, one by one, lured into the ocean by the siren song. He described strange, shadowy figures seen in the water, their forms indistinct, yet undeniably present. The final entry, dated November 1st, 1888, was barely legible, scrawled in a frantic hand. They are here. They have come for us. The singing, it is all around us. The ship is sinking. They are pulling us down to the city of light and song. The journal ended there. Thomas sat in his cottage, the silence of the night pressing in on him, the chilling words echoing in his mind. The Leviathan had been lost at sea, never to be seen again. And now he had found its final testament. He tried to rationalize it. It was just a story, a work of fiction perhaps. But the journals felt too real, too authentic. And the details, the singing, the city of light and song resonated with something deep within him, a primal fear of the unknown depths. Over the next few days, Thomas couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He would look out at the ocean, and he would swear he saw faint, shimmering lights beneath the waves, moving slowly, deliberately. And sometimes, when the wind was just right, he thought he heard it, a faint, ethereal singing, carried on the breeze, a haunting melody that seemed to call to him from the deep. He decided to get rid of the journals. He couldn't bear to have them in his cottage any longer. He took them back to the beach, intending to burn them, to erase the chilling story from existence. But as he stood there, a sudden, powerful wave crashed onto the shore, pulling the chest and its contents out into the churning water. Thomas watched as the chest was dragged out to sea, swallowed by the dark waves. He felt a strange sense of relief, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. But the relief was short-lived. That night, as he lay in his bed, he heard it, the singing. It was louder now, closer, coming from the ocean outside his cottage. And he heard something else, something new, a faint, rhythmic tapping, like wood against glass, coming from his window. He looked out. The ocean was dark, but he could see faint, shimmering lights beneath the waves, moving slowly, deliberately towards his cottage. And in the window, just barely visible in the reflection, he saw a pale, gaunt face, its eyes wide and vacant, its mouth open in a silent scream. Thomas knew. They had come for him. The Leviathan had found its way home. He never left his cottage again. His neighbors would bring him food, but he would only communicate through a crack in the door. He spent his days staring out at the ocean, his eyes filled with a profound, unshakable terror. He died a few months later, his face frozen in a silent scream. His cottage was eventually sold, and the new owners, unaware of its dark history, often complained about the strange, faint singing they heard coming from the ocean at night. And sometimes, they said, they would see faint, shimmering lights beneath the waves, moving slowly, deliberately towards their shore. And that brings us to the end of tonight's chilling journey into the depths of true beach horror stories. These tales remind us that the ocean, in all its vastness and beauty, holds secrets far older and more terrifying than we can ever imagine. If these stories have left you with a lingering fear of the tide, please give this video a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which story sent the most shivers down your spine. Do you have your own true beach horror story? Share it with us at our mail in the description, and it might be featured in a future video. Don't forget to subscribe to Unsolved for more terrifying true horror stories, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. We bring you new horror content every week, guaranteed to keep you on the edge of your seat. Visit our channel for more spine-chilling content, and remember, the ocean gives, and the ocean takes away. Until next time, stay safe and try to get some sleep, if you can. Thanks for watching Unsolved, and we'll see you in the next one.